Men, and I use the term loosely. It's spring, and a man's thoughts turn to Anyway, do you ever wonder why these lawnmowers don't start? This is the air cleaner backing plate off of one of them. And they've actually got a very clever mechanism in here that can be fucked up by, of all things, the air cleaner. This is a aftermarket reproduction of the Briggs and Stratton. And I'll show you why that's important in a minute. But let's look at this air cleaner backing plate first. This is one of the ones with a little primer bulb on it, and you can see it's got a tiny hole in it. This is actually an air inlet, and when you put your finger over that hole, you trap all the air that's in there. And then when you push on it, you dispel the air through this channel. And I'll show you where that goes in a minute. You know, for years when I pushed on this thing, I assumed that I was directly squirting gas down the throat of the carburetor. You're not squirting gas at all. You're squirting air. The air goes through this tube in this passageway behind this gasket. When the air gets to this little hole, it comes out of the air cleaner backing plate and goes into the carburetor. Through passageways in the carburetor, it fills the top of the float bowl. So as you pressurize it, it builds up a little head of pressure in there, and it forces gas to come up through the main just passageway and dribble into the throat of the carb. So as you're pumping the primer bulb, you're building up a little head of air pressure in there. The check valve keeps the air from leaking back out through this hole, and that little bit of pressure fills the top of the float bowl and forces gas out. That's how this primer works. I had no idea that was how these things work. I'm 67 years old. I've been cutting grass since I was 10. And I had no idea that was how this worked. Like I said, I was just squirting gas in there. Well, you're not. Why does that matter, you may ask yourself? I'll show you why. This air cleaner backing plate, if you'll note, has a rather distinct curve to it. That distinct curve transfers to the area where this gasket seats up against the face of the carburetor. So it also carries a little bow to it. This gasket and this air cleaner backing plate do not seal up against the face of the carb. So when you're pumping this thing, the air is not pressurizing the float bowl, it's leaking out. Therefore, no primer fuel is being pushed down the carb throat. How did this happen, you may ask? I'll show you. This dirty piece of shit is the Briggs and Stratton factory replacement air filter. This clean piece of shit is the copycat made in foreign, some third world country somewhere, I suppose. If you measure this one, it's about 340 thousandths of an inch thick. If you measure the Briggs and Stratton one, it is about 280 thousandths of an inch thick. What difference does that make, you say? I'll show you. Here's the air cleaner backing plate. Here's the third world import air cleaner. And here is the cover installed. You'll notice it doesn't want to fit. And when you tighten the screw up, it makes the back bulge out, and it puts a bow in it, which makes it not seal against the face of the car, which makes pushing this little piece of shit totally a waste of time. Okay, this here is a Briggs and Stratton factory replacement part air cleaner backing plate being installed with this nasty, dirty original equipment Briggs and Stratton air filter. And we'll put it together. You'll notice the air cleaner backing plate is straight. The air filter is not causing it to bow. Therefore, this surface remains flat and seals up the back of the carburetor the way it's supposed to be. Who would have thought 60 thousandths of extra meat on a piece of squishy foam rubber would make a difference? But it does. If I didn't know any better, I could have sworn that this came from V-Twin, but it didn't. It came from a hardware store. So anyway, lessons to be learned. Let's look at one other clever little thing on this that I thought was pretty amazing. Let's look at the primer bulb. And specifically, let's look at the check valve in there. Let's take a quick look at the primer bulb. Just a little rubber bulb, nothing special about it. It has a hole in the middle, of course. And you and I know what it looks like, okay? They made it this shape so that a guy would know that he had to touch it right away. The little hole, like I say, that's the air inlet. So when you put your finger on that, you trap the air that's in the bulb, and you squish it, it discharges it into the airspace over the float in the carburetor. So when you're pumping this thing, it's probably kind of important to take your finger all the way off of the hole so that it could refill with air. Okay, this is the check valve. Air flows in this direction, towards the palm of my hand. So when you squeeze this little bulb, you're pushing air through there. And the outlet side of this thing is a little rubber duck-billed kind of arrangement. And you can see the tip of the screwdriver poking through there. So you push the air through. After the air fills the top of the carburetor float bowl, this little lips just kind of squeezed together. So it's a little bit of a one-way check valve. Air could go in, but it can't come out. Thereby, you have a little head pressure on the bowl to help aid fuel in its journey up the main jet and down the throat of the carburetor. Very, very kind of clever. Anyway, Lawnmower Briggs and Stratton priming system. I'm sure all the lawnmower mechanics are thinking, geez, what an idiot. He didn't know that. But I didn't know that. Like I say, cut grass for, 50 years and, well, more than that, 55 years, and secrets lie within. Even on a piece of crap like a lawnmower, little design details make a big difference. And with that, I am out of here.